Why do some people keep choosing chaos again and again, no matter how much they say they want peace? Well, if you've ever said, I hate drama, but your life looks like a soap opera, this episode is for you today on Off the Couch. And welcome to Off the Couch with Dr. Greg, because growth doesn't happen lying down. Brian, how do you like I'm Dr. Greg, psychologist. This is Brian Gomez, producer. How do you like the new tagline? Growth doesn't happen lying down.
Okay, it sounds a lot better when you say it like that. I was a little worried. I was like, okay, but it sounds good.
We have Tony Sweet on the board. How do you like it, Tony?
I like it. At least you didn't put a growth.
Well, what I didn't like, I was really tooling around with a new tagline. I thought maybe because change doesn't happen lying down, but there's something about growth that really is more all-encompassing. Mm-hmm. But the only thing I thought was, when you're a teenager, you're always growing, and it seems like you'd wake up in the morning and be taller. So, I had a little argument with myself over the weekend. I thought, you know what, put this aside, because we're really talking emotional growth.
Who won?
That is something that does require action. What?
I said, who won?
Who won? Well, I did.
Okay.
Which is good.
That is good.
Because when I fight with myself, there is one clear winner. Well, today on Off the Couch, we're doing, the title of the episode really is Addicted to Chaos, from Trauma Bonding to Drama Queens. I wanted to do an episode on being addicted to chaos because I think chaos has become something that people become more and more drawn to. We've already seen individuals who are addicted to chaos, but we also see that there are people out there who really thrive on chaos, but we're also all becoming a little bit more susceptible to it because of different influences, reality TV, TikTok, and also our current government situation, which does seem to continually thrust us into a chaotic stance. So I think this is a good topic, although we're going to really focus on relationships, and that's because I think what I want to help you with, I can't fix the world. I wish I could. I can't fix reality TV. Tried once, didn't work. And I can't fix TikTok because I'm not even sure how that works. But I can help you with fixing relationships and helping you fix your relationships. So if you find calm uncomfortable, if you feel like you're drawn to emotional roller coasters, you feel like your relationships are a soap opera, you may yourself be addicted to chaos. Are you addicted to chaos, Brian?
Honestly, I was thinking about that, and that's not me, honestly. I've even thought about this.
I have some questions.
Okay. I'm grateful that I don't even have a big friend group, because I feel like a lot of the times within friend groups, there's always drama or chaos, or even organizing when to go out or like where to meet up. It gets too chaotic. And for me, any little moment like that, I'm just like, I'm out.
Yeah, I can tell already you would fail the quiz.
Really?
You're not addicted to chaos.
No. Go for it. Ask me some questions.
Oh, do you feel well, to you too, Tony.
Okay.
What? Yeah, you have to take the quiz. This is not the real quiz. I did put together a real quiz, which I'll put in download form in the YouTube notes. This is just a few questions. But do you feel anxious when things are too calm?
I would feel weird that somebody felt that way. I like calmness.
Oh, Tony has to think.
Not that I want chaos. I do. I'm like my father, that I constantly have to be doing something. So not necessarily chaos, but just
staying
creativity.
Busy.
So
you're an object that needs to be in motion.
Yes.
Okay.
Not necessarily chaos.
I don't know that that's chaos,
yes.
But that's maybe something else. Do you mistake intensity for intimacy? So when something feels really strong, does that feel like intimacy to you?
Nope, not for me.
No.
Yeah, no. Have you ever gone back to someone who hurt you?
I feel like we've all been there.
Yes.
We have all been there. That's probably true. But I think you has it been more than once?
No, I understand where how the question is. It's if going back to like a toxic relationship or something like that. No, sometimes I've thought about it.
Not just emotionally hurt by breaking up, but like hurt you. Like could be not just hit, kicked, or punched, but actually could be, just really
bad for my
bad
life.
For you. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've been blessed not to deal with that.
How about you, Tony?
There was one particular we'd break up, get back together, break up, get back to, but that was in my 20s, so I'm gonna blame it on the 20s.
20s are a time for mistakes. Let's face it.
Sure.
I do remember once someone tried to get back together with me, and I was devastated on the breakup. And then I don't know how many months later he said, "Oh, I made a mistake. I'd really like to get back together." And that turned me off. I was like, I was already moved on. I'm like, no, I don't want to go back to that. No. Like once I got off the roller coaster, I realized, no, that isn't something I want to get back on. So, do you get bored in stable relationships?
No, I feel like that's the whole goal, to have a stable relationship.
Yeah. And you, Tony?
No, I'm pretty good with being quiet.
Good. I love peace myself.
Yeah.
And which feels scarier? This one's a hard one. Which feels scarier? Being alone or being in a healthy relationship? Think about it.
I guess we have to choose one, right?
You have to choose one.
Which one's scarier?
Being alone or being in a relationship?
In a healthy relationship or
in a healthy relationship? Okay. Sorry. In a healthy.
That would make a difference.
Things going great. Being alone, you can do what you want. Or being in a healthy relationship.
I don't have problem with being alone.
Same.
So, again, this one was the first time that I actually accepted a healthy relationship where I loved it. Before that, yes, I was like, always waited for something to go wrong.
So waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah. This time around, no. I feel comfortable. So I guess I'd have to be the relationship one, but because I'm good with being alone.
And Tony, you're in a relationship with a Brazilian.
A Brazilian, yes.
Yeah, who are known to maybe be more dramatic at times.
What? No.
So that's really interesting.
Yes.
Really great.
Yes.
Yeah, really great. And you, Brian?
About which one would I pick?
Yeah, being alone. What feels scarier to you, being alone or being in a healthy relationship?
Well, I'm more of a romantic, so I would want the healthy relationship in my life. So I guess being alone, although I do enjoy my aloneness, but
I'm the same as you guys. I'm fine with being alone, and I want a healthy relationship. So I really had to struggle with this one.
Yeah.
And I thought, what is scarier? That's where I went. Like, is a healthy relationship scary to me? And I'm like, no, I enjoy the challenge. The challenges that come up, like the being challenged to be better, or being challenged to not be so selfish, being challenged to basically work with another human being. And I think there's great happiness and growth in that. Being alone is not scary to me, but I thought I'd rather have the other one. I'd rather have the feeling of being challenged a bit. Being alone, I'm a little afraid of, just kind of resting on my laurels.
Yeah, I would want a partner in crime in life, for sure.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. Bonnie and Clyde.
And I think this episode is for people who want relationships. Now, I think a lot of people who are more in the addicted to trauma camp are going to kind of fall into two basic categories. One is that if they're very addicted, then they're sort of a drama. I said trauma. Oh my God! The really kind of going for the drama in a relationship. They're going to be wanting to go for it, or things get so bad that they pull away completely because they want to protect themselves. So I think what we're all talking about is how to bridge the gap and sort of have not too dramatic of a relationship, but also be cool with being with, somebody else. And how do you do that? Let's talk about the two types of chaos that I want to kind of go into a little bit more in depth. One, I want to talk about drama addiction. Drama addiction is seeking out conflict and emotional chaos, and you thrive on the intensity and excitement. This is a very intense thing you're going through, because it's sort of like you're on a giant roller coaster, and things get very, very high, but then they get very, very low, and you're just really there for the thrill of it. I don't go on roller coasters to be bored. I go on roller coasters to be thrilled, and that's the drama addiction. Trauma bonding can be an even scarier roller coaster. Trauma bonding is remaining in a toxic or an abusive relationship and bonding through the cycles of abuse, and I'll talk about that. So both of them thrive on keeping the drama going. One is more active creator, that's the drama addicted person, and one is really thriving like almost a passenger on that roller coaster.
That's a good way to put it.
So if you can kind of figure out where you fall in this, or if you don't fall into it, great, good for you. But that kind of starts to help you to see what pathway you need out. So let's talk about where this comes from. Chaos sometimes can feel like home. And I grew up in a chaotic atmosphere. I think there were times of chaos and times of great calm. And in a way that helped me, because I think if I grew up in constant chaos, I might be a very different person than you see today. But people who thrive on chaos can often have unpredictable caregivers, inconsistent emotional support. They can grow up in and around abuse, but they can also grow up in and around neglect, where the parents kind of let them do what they want, or won't pay attention to them until the parent starts. It won't pay attention to them until the child starts showing more of a dramatic response. So the child starts to learn, oh, I need to scream louder to get what I want. I need to break something to get what I want. I need to get their attention in other ways. And they basically learn to be more dramatic. That can also happen. So there are different origins of this. And some kids, we always talk about temperament, that there's always some kids who are born more calm and some kids who are born more irascible. Like they're a little bit more erratic and problematic.
I had a niece like that.
She was a colicky baby, we say.
Just even today at don't listen, but at mid-30s, she's very hyper, just constantly hyper. But she was like, I remember my mom when she was a kid, it was like, I love her, but I can't stand her, because she was so just always hyper and in your face and constantly running and doing things and just being chaotic constantly. Yeah,
she may have a little bit of an engine in her that's always revving.
Now her daughter.
What?
Now her daughter's like that.
Well, there you go. What we don't want to do is to get on that emotional roller coaster. You can have that engine that's always going, but if you're always trying to create drama, that's a different thing. Basically, in childhood, did you have any questions about this, Brian? In childhood, the nervous system learns to equate intensity with love. And let me give an example. I often have this with parents. They'll talk about that a child, let's say, in the middle of the night will, and that's not probably the best example. Let me see. Like a child, it wants a toy. And the child will scream about, I want the toy, and the parent will say, no, you cannot have that toy. Maybe it's in a grocery store, or maybe it's, just somewhere else. No, you cannot have that toy. We can't afford it, whatever the reason. Like, no, just because I said so. Parents can say that. So they can say no. And then the child will scream louder. And then the parent will say, no, if you keep screaming, we're going to have to leave. And the child will scream louder. And then the parent's faced with a choice. The parent may not want to leave. They may have just made that threat. So the parent may think, okay, the only way I can keep this child quiet is to give it a toy. The child, give the child a toy. So that parent may do it, and then show the child, actually teach the child that emotional intensity is what was required to get what they want. If the parent did want to stay but chose to leave after saying, I will leave if you keep doing this, then the parent is practicing something called distressed tolerance. They're in distress too, and they're sitting with the child, and they're leaving with the child, which is the better way to go, because then the child learns that's the consequence of their action. So these kinds of actions repeated over and over again can actually create more of a problem and teach the child to be more and more dramatic over time.
Yeah, my mom we'd go into the restroom or we'd go into the car and I would come back a different child. Yeah. It was
Did she have a ray gun? What happened?
No, I would get a spanking for sure.
Oh.
If I was told no and I made a scene, it would be dealt with, you know.
Well, and in fact, these children learn something that's actually counterintuitive. They learn that calm is a problem. And how do they do that? We actually have a graphic that says calm equals the unfamiliar, which equals threat. Because calm is unfamiliar, and because the unfamiliar doesn't get with them what they want, and it can actually equal threat. So that isn't always the case, but it starts to be the case in people who live in more traumatic households, especially in trauma related households, like where there's a lot of physical or emotional abuse or sexual abuse, or there might be bullying by brothers and sisters toward the child, and the parents are neglectful and just allow it to happen, saying kids will be kids. And sometimes parents sign on for abuse, which I've always been kind of shocked by, like saying, if there's a gay child and they're saying, well, that's what he gets. He has to learn to fight. So there's always time when parents sign on and actually create the trauma that the children suffers. So we have to be really careful about this. Trauma survivors often confuse peace with boredom because they're not used to it, and it feels threatening and weird. So a trauma survivor can find themselves in a pattern where they're actually starting to create the very abuse they're trying to avoid, or to create the drama that they feel like they need to kind of equalize the world.
So this is kind of like a learned behavior, or...
I think as in everything in psychology, there is an element of nature and there is an element of nurture. I don't think anything is all nature, and I don't think anything is all nurture. Because basically we're plopped into the world, an organism, and we're all a little bit different, our organisms, and that's good, because to forward the species, we all need to be a little bit different from each other. And then we all interact in the world, and everyone's world they interact in is a little bit different, including children who are raised in exactly the same family. I'm sorry, no parent treats every child in their family exactly the same way. And then you have to deal with sibling effects, and then you have to deal with maybe parents didn't have money for the older children. Now they have money for the younger children. So now there could be jealousies and things of the younger children, and then parents are not as fearful, so they don't have as many rules for the younger children as they do for the older children. I mean, there are all kinds of things that happen that even when you're raised in the same family, you still have a very different upbringing.
That's so true. I never thought about it that way.
So let's talk about, I don't like to get into brain chemistry in here, but I just want to touch on this because a lot of people in the trauma community do respond to this is because, but these are very real things. So there's dopamine spikes and adrenaline spikes that create these highs and lows. Adrenaline happens when we feel fear. It's that fight or flight response. So when we feel fear, we have more hyper arousal. We're always looking around the corner, and in fact, we can be a little bit more paranoid. When you're looking around the corner and you're feeling more paranoid, you're going to find more problems. And in fact, a lot of people who are in that state actually create more problems. They can misinterpret something somebody says. They can become defensive. They can stumble and fall because they let's say they're taking dinner out of the oven and they want to please somebody, and their adrenaline is very high because they're afraid of criticism. And then all of a sudden they trip and drop the dinner on the ground.
Well, that would suck.
It does suck. That can create, those kinds of things can create more and more problems. The dopamine effects, this is often called the pleasure chemical. I think it has a lot more to do with how the brain works. It's a neurotransmitter, and basically, bottom line about dopamine, it's called pleasure chemical, but it's also kind of underlying motivation. And our brain continues to regulate with dopamine. It's kind of saying, hey, if you go to the gym, hey, Brian, if you go to the gym, we're going to reward you. It gives you a little boost. We're going to reward you with even feeling better after the gym. And you go to the gym and then you feel better and you reinforce yourself. So basically, as you go through this process, dopamine helps you get there, helps motivate you. You do the behavior and then you feel the reward. Yay, everything's good.
That's why I'm there every day. I'm addicted to it.
But there are dopamine ups and downs. And what happens in people who are in abusive relationships, especially, or people who are very prone to drama, is they tend to have very high highs and very low lows. And what we often say in psychology is something no different than a lot of places. What goes up must come down. So we start to feel more... We feel once we have a super high, we actually have quite a drop, quite a low. And if you really look at how dopamine is affected on something like speed use, like amphetamine will cause a huge spike in dopamine and then a huge withdrawal to happen, a huge decrease. Methamphetamine has an even higher spike in dopamine and an even lower withdrawal. So these kinds of things, basically you're on the roller coaster at that point. You're having super high thrilling. You're up there. Have you ever been on a roller coaster and you're going up and the tension builds as you get higher and higher and higher? And you're getting up there, and then all of a sudden, I've had this. I say, oh shit. Like, we're up high. This is scary.
And you feel the wind just blowing through your hair. You're like, oh, yep.
And then you tilt over the top, and then things get very bad. And then, boom. And then it's a thrill. Yeah. But then when you get down to the bottom, you're like, ugh. Like, then you feel the weight of the roller coaster, and then, then you're on to the next thing. But it's all very exciting. So you're like, let's go again after the whole thing's over. Let's go again.
And you do it all over again, too.
And you do it again. And that's what happens here in these kinds of things. And what's interesting, too, is when you're standing in line for a roller coaster, don't you start to get excited?
Mm-hmm. Or nervous.
I get nervous, yeah. I'm like, oh, man, it's coming. Oh, God. I try to brace myself for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I think that's part of it, though. The fear and excitement are very closely related. Yeah. So you can have both at the same time. I mean, they're very compatible. They're really the same thing in many ways. So what happens is something we call intermittent reinforcement, and I've talked about this. So this is to say when you're reinforced sometimes, that means you get the good stuff sometimes, but you don't get good stuff other times, you're more likely to keep going back for more. And how that might work, let's say on a roller coaster, is that, well, there were a couple drops there that were really spectacular, but some of it is very, meh. But indeed, I really like that, and I'll probably want to go on it again. There was a roller coaster I went on at Knott's Berry Farm. Just going to tell you
Scary
this.
Farm.
It was during Knott's Scary Farm, so that's an accurate call. I went to Knott's Scary Farm, and this roller coaster was straight up, and I don't even know how high. It was it was probably the highest roller coaster I've ever been on, but went straight up. And here you are. I mean, it rushes you to it, and you're going up, and it kind of catches you, and you're going straight up, straight up, straight up. And I was terrified. Honestly, I really wished I hadn't agreed to do this. You get to the top, and as it starts tilting over, you can't even see the track in front of you.
Oh,
and then in my head, it went straight down. I'm sure there was more of an incline or decline, whatever. But I was absolutely terrified going back down. And I came off and I said, never again. Never again. And I have no remorse. None whatsoever. But that kind of roller coaster, that may be analogous to having something too much, too fast. Too much, too fast can push you away. But if they can do it just right, and in a toxic or an abusive relationship, they don't start that way. You don't go on a first date with someone who's abusive and they slug you in the mouth. You would not go back, right?
No. Well, you
I
never
hope
know.
not. I hope not, but
Let's hope not. But as relationship goes on, you might have seen little things, like maybe they were a little controlling, or maybe they were rude to, as we've talked about in here, rude to a service provider, but really nice to you. So you're thinking, oh, I'm special.
And you do.
And then you get seduced into the relationship, and then the behavior comes back around on you. And then you start to make other kinds of justifications and rationalizations, and then the behavior keeps repeating itself, and we're going to talk more about that pattern. So this is all very similar to substance abuse and addiction in general.
That's what I was going to ask. I was like, it sounds kind of like substance abuse when you're addicted to this feeling.
Right. Exactly. And sometimes this is called a behavioral addiction, like you're addicted to a certain behavior pattern. Gambling is a good example. Gambling is something we could we're going to do a whole episode on gambling. We talked about it in the past. It's just variable ratio reinforcement. It's just, gambling is the purest addictive reinforcement pattern. And gambling, that's why people get caught in its web so easily. And it's one of the hardest addictions to give up, if not the hardest. I actually think gambling is very scary. And now that we have gambling on our phones with sports betting, I don't know that a lot of people stand a chance. I haven't seen a lot about it. I don't know how sports betting works necessarily, but I know it can be rigged. So I think people are setting themselves up to lose a lot. So
I'm glad I've never gotten into that, and I don't ever want to.
Please don't. So let's recap this. The neuroscience of chaos addiction. So early chaos shapes neural pathways. Then dopamine reinforces drama and conflict. Unpredictability triggers hyperarousal, and that's looking around the corners. And then we have breaking the addiction, or actually getting out of that pattern, would feel unsafe because you feel like you need it. And you feel like, in fact, that you are to blame much of the time for this. So
can I talk about that breaking the addiction? I think I told you about a family member in my family about gambling addiction. And it got her in huge trouble. Like, potentially could go to jail because taking money that wasn't hers.
Yeah.
But she told me many times, like, well, that's my only outlet to escape, to get away, to be my own time, for my own fun. And I'm like, can't you find something else? But it's been 25, 30 years that she's been struggling with this. So, yeah, I think breaking that. Even her kids was like, hey, if you don't stop, we're not going to have communication with you anymore. But so she would rather choose the gambling over because she feels like that's her only outlet. So that would be the breaking up with that would feel unsafe.
Yeah, and it probably would build a great deal of tension, and she wouldn't know what to do and how to cope, and she would be off this roller coaster and would probably be triggered pretty heavily. It is not easy, and I feel for her, but look at the effects. I mean, she's lost all these relationships, including her kids. I
know. And she won't change.
And how does somebody, like, get out of that? Like, I don't know. Like, it sounds almost impossible to give it up.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's not easy. There is something called Gamblers Anonymous, which I do recommend. It's where you can find a community of other gamblers who are getting out of it, because really social support's probably one of the most important things, and having people who understand what it's like to be caught in that web can be some of the most valuable things you can do.
And can people start by going to AA to start with, or how does that?
Sure, AA is good. I mean, it does follow the same model, but I think the problem with gambling is people will often say, well, I don't have a problem with drinking. I don't have that problem. They don't see necessarily their gambling as the problem. They can see very correctly that the casinos or the sports betting app or whatever are, they're always made to benefit the house. Always. That's how they make their money. But they kind of they make that jump over it to say, it will work out for me. I know this time it'll be okay. And we've all done this, by the way. This is the same in relationships. It'll be better next time. That's what goes through our head. It'll be better. I know this'll happen. Like, give me $1,000 and I can put that money on red and I'll pay you back. I'll make a safe bet and I'll pay you back. And that's kind of what goes through their head. And they kind of tell themselves that's the reality. With relationships, it's the same thing. You all of a sudden you're like, okay, that person came to me and apologized. It'll be better next time. They won't hurt me. It'll be okay. And then you get caught in that web again, and off you are to the races. We fool ourselves.
Sad.
So let's talk about the cycle of abuse. It's sort of often starts with idealization, in the sense that we start to look at the person as all good. We meet them, we're like, wow, this person's different. They really think I'm special. Things are really great. We're talking about the trauma bonding now specifically. This person's very special. They think I'm great. This is maybe love bombing could be in this phase. Things are all really wonderful. And then something happens and there's some kind of abuse, some kind of knockdown or negative. And then the next step, it would be from abuse to reconciliation. Reconciliation is where you really start to say, oh, baby, I'm so sorry. I'm not going to do that again. I care about you. And you want to believe them. You want to believe the person. And so then that moves you from that to hope. So from idealization to abuse to reconciliation to hope. Can you leave that up one sec, Tony? And to say to hope, you feel like, okay, things are going to be okay. And things get quiet for a while. And this is in the cycle of a traumatic relationship. Things are going to be okay. And then you start to think, you start to slip back, and then you start to see the other person doing nice things and treating you well and not doing some of those negative things that happened in the past. And you move back to idealization. But you know what happens in idealization? This is part of the problem, is in idealization, you start to see the world in a more black and white way. Oh, he's not that horrible angry person. He's this nice, wonderful human being. He won't be that anymore. He'll be this. The person who's abusing is falling into that exact same rigid pattern. They're saying, oh, she usually, but it can be a he too, that's saying, oh, they're not going to be, they're going to cook dinner well from now on. They learned their lesson. They're not going to do that mistake again. And I care about them and I love them, and the love is very intense. And they also idealize. And during this during this period, lovemaking can be very good and very intense. It can feel like the beginning of a relationship. You can go back through those limerence stages. People I think in traumatic relationships often in many ways restart their relationship over and over and over again. And that is part of the roller coaster, and it feels very good until the twig snaps, until you go over the edge, and then you're boom, you go down again. And that's exactly what happens. So idealization to abuse to reconciliation to hope. What we also see in cycles of abuse is that sometimes people even stay in it and even create more of a problem. Let's talk about that. We're going to talk about trauma bonding. Trauma bonding, you feel a trust with the person at first, and then there's some kind of emotional abuse. Then there's some kind of argument, maybe criticism back and forth, and that you become victim, but then you also could become perpetrator. You push back. And then that fight starts to happen, and then you feel trust again. So you're just caught in these cycles. The bottom line is you're caught in these cycles, and these cycles you feel like are just become normal. And this actually creates more and more of a problem for somebody. Hey, by the way, trauma bonding, I've often heard people use that term in a very bizarre way. Have you heard this?
Yeah, that's why when you were explaining it, I was like, I thought trauma bonding was a completely different thing where we share our trauma and we bond over our trauma.
Yeah.
That's what I thought it was. That's why when you were explaining it that way, I was like, what?
Well, I mean, really, trauma bonding should be that you share a trauma.
Yeah.
And then, no, not that you're just
sharing
talking about it, but that you're experiencing a trauma together and you bond as a result.
God. I was thinking about it. I was like, I feel like I've trauma bonded with people, but no, I was thinking it completely
That's how
different.
people are using it now. And I find that a very bizarre use. They say, we sat there. I couldn't go out with that person. We were trauma bonding. And I'm like, you mean getting to know them? I don't know. What are they talking about there?
Yeah, it's like your how you grew up and like, the trauma or whatever, how messed up your life has been in your, growing up.
That sounds intimate to me, but maybe it's too much sharing right away. I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's what I had assumed trauma bonding was. And I think that's what this generation thinks. So,
well, apologies for the misuse of this generation's word.
I was like, I thought I trauma bonded with somebody, but I was like, this isn't the same thing we're talking about.
No, in fact, I feel a trauma bond with my sister because we went through a very, some really big, with all my sisters, we went through the same stuff together, and we talk about it, and we don't have to say much. We can be like, yeah, you remember that? Oh, yeah, and da-da-da. That's it. But that bond is very real. Like, we know what we went through. Yeah. And I feel, bonded because of that. I mean, there is a connection. You could also actually engage in all kinds of fallout as a result of that if you don't want to practice it in a more positive way. But I know I feel more bonded as a result. Yeah. But I don't think we did as kids. I think as kids we were fighting for our own survival. I think it was not until we were adults that we really were able to kind of connect in a more positive way. So, yeah. So let's talk about this in contrast to the drama queen. The drama queen archetype. We've been talking about relationships, but let's talk about the drama queen first. The drama queen externalizes chaos for attention and identity, has an unconscious belief of if it's not intense, it's not real. And that kind of goes back to that early learning. Often learned survival strategy that they had to be dramatic to get what they want. And it functions as a performance. It functions as a result of unresolved trauma. So, let me see. You have a different thing up. Okay, yep. Sorry. Hold on. What you have is the drama queen may be overly emotional, seeks attention and validation, and it's not officially a mental health diagnosis, although it should be. We all know drama queens. Actually, drama queens can really be a problem. We always know that person in a group that starts to really pull us together. But what you put up, Tony, was a graphic I had contrasting it to histrionic personality disorder. Histrionic personality disorder is someone who has extreme emotionality. They have an excessive need for approval, and it is very much a mental health condition. These are often people that you see that are just all drama all the time. And this can be, a lot of actresses fall into this particular diagnosis because this is part of a cluster called cluster B personality disorder, dramatic erratic personality disorders. I'm going to give you too much information, but that's like antisocial personality, borderline personality, narcissistic personality, and the fourth one is histrionic personality. These are the drama queens. This is reality TV in a nutshell, is cluster B. And cluster B basically is marked by excessive emotionality in general. Individuals often feel uncomfortable when they're in histrionic, not being the center of attention. You know, these people that have to be the center of attention. If they're not, there is something wrong, and it's something about them. And it usually is something to the effect of, I don't matter if you're not all paying attention to me. So it's survival.
It's weird. I've known people like that I have like a semi-close friend. I say it like that because I get so annoyed when like he acts like that I will leave. Like I will be like, I can't be around you, and I don't want to be around this, that I will literally end my day with them and just go home, because I'm like, that's annoying. And I don't know, I feel sad for him in a way, but I'm like, that's really just ruining everybody's fun.
Good for you.
Yeah,
that's actually the best way to handle it.
I don't like that. I don't like being around it. So I hate whenever he starts acting like that. That there's been times where if he wants to hang out, I'll be like, you have to behave. If we're out in public, you cannot act like that, or else I'm not going.
How sad that you would have to say that. But anyway, I agree.
Yeah.
It's good. This is a person who may use their appearance as well, or dramatic behavior, to draw attention to themselves. And appearance is actually a big one. They may wear something extra low cut, or may wear something extra revealing, or dress in a way that's sexually suggestive, inappropriate to the environment, like not something you would do normally, like going to, Ralph's, a grocery store, dressed like, you're going out for,
we all know people like that.
A little extra that night.
Or wearing a fur coat in LA.
Wearing a fur coat in LA? That just sounds hot.
Yeah.
Who does that? You know someone?
Yeah.
That does sound like someone who's crying for attention. Oh. Their emotions may seem shallow, shifting, or exaggerated. So they really have trouble landing on emotion. And this is especially a problematic personality type. They're not just drama queens. They're often rooted in early attachment wounds. So they feel this kind of chaos. And they can overlap with trauma bonding, which would be the... talking about the people in abusive relationships, because they're often drawn to people who will provide those, because they put them in that comfortable trauma mentality, and it can help them help them sort of regulate themselves if they can feel like there's some sort of structure to all the drama that's happening in their lives. That's how weird it is. And it's
true. The friend that I was describing is literally that type of person.
Oh yeah.
That will seek somebody that is like in the most
super narcissistic.
Yeah, very that, and like finds the problems, finds the toxic relationships, and like stays and like clings to them. And
yeah, I like the prison yard guy. I like the
married man with a kid.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So.
Well, why? Well, I've known people like that. I had a friend that was not necessarily a drama queen, but loved being around drama queens. I always said, "Oh, I love the drama," but it's like they were never the issue. But what would cause you to want to be around the drama?
Probably because they do get off on a little bit on it. They might themselves be drama addicted, if you will. That sometimes this would be a little akin to someone who likes going to the amusement park and standing there and watching the roller coaster because they get a vicarious thrill of watching somebody else. And they don't have to take responsibility or actually participate in it themselves. Wow. So, I mean, this is probably still a problematic pattern. I mean, I've got friends who are colorful, but I'm like you, Brian. Once the color becomes a little too neon, I have to back off. I mean, I do like colorful people, but I like stable. I'm a kind of a, I don't know.
I like to be happy and enjoying my time. If
happy
it's
and
miserable and just ugly, it's just not for me.
I mean, to be on the beach with somebody and you're both like sitting there reading a book, that sounds great.
That sounds amazing. I mean, I probably would.
Or even hanging out at the beach, drinking with friends, just having a good time.
Yeah, just like hanging out, doing nothing. Like, hey, you know, let's go in the water, let's come back, let's lay there and do nothing. So the treatment involves building emotional awareness and interpersonal effectiveness. So the person who has histrionic personality, it's really a much bigger thing. So I would think the drama addicted, sort of a small, you know, like a small A, and then the is the big A. It's the capital A, the histrionic personality disorder. The therapy focus is developing authentic self-expression without dramatization, which is very, very hard because they have to learn to use their words. And that's not always easy to do because they're not going to get the effect that they want right away. And they have to trust that people will respond better when they're not big drama queens. And that's not easy. So let's talk about breaking the cycle. Ooh. To break the cycle, you have to have awareness of the emotional patterns. Step 2, you have to do the nervous system regulation, breath work, grounding, and therapy. That would require also reconnecting with support systems. Support systems get a short shrift a lot because that actually does help you to believe that you can handle things. It helps you know that you're not alone. Reconnecting with your support system helps you saddle the weight. So it's one of the most important things when you can acknowledge the pattern, reconnect with support, and you could also go to therapy at this point. That's extremely important. That person can help you saddle the weight. Then we have to do number 3, which is establish boundaries. And during that, establishing boundaries isn't just saying no. You're building tolerance for emotional stability. The boundaries are also inside the house. That you have to be able to say, I'm not going to do that. And to be able to sit with that. And number 4 is prioritize self-care. And that means safe relationships, routines, like actually being kind of a okay guy, you know, or girl, or woman, or anything.
But I do agree with you. I think therapy can help a lot of people in a lot of ways.
Practice boring peace daily to rewire your brain. Like, be okay. And some people will say, do mindfulness stuff. You know, that doesn't work for everyone. But, you know, can you take a walk quietly without your phone and not listen to any music and just take a walk? Can you have a dog, Brian? Can you just sit there and just pet your dog for 15 minutes? Okay. Choose predictability over intensity, build emotional literacy, seek therapy and support groups. Notice when you seek drama. Avoid emotionally charged content for 24 hours. That's a good one. I don't know how you always know, but that's a recommendation. Journal. Journaling is really good. What does calm feel like in my body? Like self-reflect. And 5 minutes of stillness a day. And again, that 5 minutes could be in the shower. Except I suppose you're not supposed to run the water for 5 minutes, but...
Oh, I'd be doing it for 20.
20?
I just feel so good.
You must be dirty.
No, I just stand there and I'm like, I wish I could lay down.
Well, you could take a bath.
Well, yeah.
That's what they call
the
a
shower running.
So, Brian, you have some listener questions.
Yes. Okay.
This is going to be hard because I'm not the least bit prepared.
Okay, the first one. My last relationship was constant drama, and now that I'm with someone stable, I feel bored. Is that normal?
Oh, God. Totally normal. And thank God they feel bored, because that means the relationship's on to something good. I hate to draw a parallel politically, but we had 4 years of drama. We had 4 years of very still, reliable, things getting done, no drama, no bragging, nothing. And what did the country do? We missed the drama.
Apparently.
And then they brought it back. So this is a problem. The person needs to acknowledge the boredom is not bad. Boredom means that they are disconnected from their environment. What happens with drama is that we're automatically connected with the environment because of fight or flight. We're always looking to survive. We're always like on the lookout. And then we feel reward when something happens. Oh, something good happens and we feel that reward. But then we're reconnected to the drama instantly. It's chaos, and it keeps us turned away from maybe the real problems. Boredom means that they're in probably a normal relationship and they're used to this pattern. What they have to do is teach themselves to reconnect to their partner and to be able to self-regulate and put themselves back down into reality and to be able to find the new place in this relationship. If we could look at dopamine cycles, we have that what goes up must come down. People in dramatic, erratic relationships, those high trauma bonding or histrionic relationships, whatever, they're going up and down very, very dramatically. What the best relationships are more like a merry-go-round. They go up and down, but it's more predictable and it's going around. And it's fun. It's very, it's very sweet. But you have time for conversation. You can actually get off whatever, place you're on and switch and not really endanger yourself. Honestly, I know some people prefer the roller coaster. And I think in the movie Parenthood, the woman said, I prefer the roller coaster. And I get her point. But actually, healthy relationships are more like the merry-go-round, and they're more deepening. Like we eventually feel more and more depth with the person. So you do feel the high reward without the big drops. So I think that's actually good. So just give it time and be there with the person and take responsibility for your boredom. Don't blame others. There is a saying also, people who are bored are boring.
Yes, I have heard that.
And I think that's good to reflect on that. If you feel bored, you're probably a boring person. So you probably need to do some work.
Okay, we'll do one more because I know we're short on time. Okay. Are people who constantly post emotional outbursts on social media just seeking attention, or could it be something deeper?
Seeking attention. What do you mean?
Well, I've seen people usually will go on Instagram and post about their breakups and let all their dirty laundry out, and it's just I personally could never do that, But it's always a form of attention. They're posting about their breakup because they want other people to go, oh, poor you. Or they want to tell a dirty story about the person who broke up with them. Or they want people to feel sorry for them. I can't tell you. I've encountered many people in my life who will start saying something. They'll be describing a situation. And they'll say, that person feels so bad for me. They care, and they're basically saying they care about me a lot. I'm a valuable person because they care about me. That they worry about me, and say it as if that's a good thing. Do you want someone to worry about you? I mean, I generally don't, but instead, people do worry about us. That's just real life. But it's not that I'm happy about that. Instead, I don't need someone to worry about me for me to feel valuable as a person, but I think some people do. This is somebody who needs other people to respond to them. Oh, you poor thing, you're a victim. I want to help you. I'll help, you can, whatever. I'll bring you chicken soup. I can set you up with someone new, whatever it is. Or they want to tell the dirty story to get validated. There's a bunch of things that could be at work. But does that make them crazy? Like,
It doesn't make them crazy.
Okay, I'm wondering because
It doesn't make them crazy, but it makes them incredibly insecure. And I would really stay away from that person. We used to joke about one that was always on the internet when people would take a selfie of themselves with someone in a hospital bed.
Or they'll post their bracelet, their little
their own
information.
No, but I don't understand that, number one. But number two, I mean, I could conject, but but people post like themselves smiling as there's a sick ant behind them, like looking quite bad. And what they're doing is saying, look at me, I'm visiting her. Aren't I a great person? I would run so far from that person that they need that kind of validation, and that they're willing to use another person in one of their toughest times to do it. Although I want to confess. No, the friend that I used to joke with this about, he was in the hospital, and I go, let's take one of those pictures. And I go, you can look really bad, and I can take a picture of myself smiling. And he just said no. He said no, I know. He said no, and I respected his boundary, but I still thought it would have been funny.
Oh, God.
Okay, any more?
Yeah, we can do one more if you want.
Okay.
Yeah. Why does calm make me anxious? I feel like I need something to go wrong just to feel alive.
What do you think from what we talked about today? Because we addressed that a little bit. What do you think?
Like, why does the calm make them anxious?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we kind of talked about how if you've been brought up with that, and that's all you know, that seems unfamiliar, and the unfamiliar seems scary to them.
Yeah, it feels like a threat. That's exactly it. Good for you, Brian.
Look at me learning.
Thank you. Well, thank you. And also we have a handout in the notes. So in the show notes, and that I'll tell you how to get to that in a second. Thank you for joining me on Off the Couch. If you saw yourself in any of today's patterns, take a breath. You're not broken. You're just human. Remember, insight is the first step, but action is what moves the needle. So whether it's breaking a pattern, reaching out to someone new, or simply being kinder to yourself, that's the real work. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend. Share the episode with someone who needs it. Subscribe to Off the Couch with Dr. Greg. Leave a review. Join the conversation. Oh my God, there's so many possibilities. But I'd love it if people said hi. And also on Instagram at AskDrGreg. In links to the studies, including that download YouTube page, go to youtube.com/Dr. Greg. And includes my handout, the Chaos Addiction Quiz, and tips to help you get out of it. Until next time, keep questioning the patterns. Don't settle for chemistry when you deserve true compatibility. Until next time, this is Dr. Greg, Brian, and Tony. And the very last time in this studio. This is the very last time. I'm actually very sad,
and I'm sad too.
Yeah, we're gonna make a little shift, and we'll tell you about it. But this is it. Next time, I'm going to be in Tony's home studio. I don't know where it is, or it's an A studio.
It's an A studio.
Yeah, okay. I don't know where we're going. But then we're going to shift to another place. So until next time, and our new digs, be present, be flexible, and be kind.